Hi, this is Corey Franklin with Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. Two figures related to World War II tonight, and the first is our feature, Mavis Beatty, who died at the age of 92. When she was a young woman, Mavis Beatty worked at Bletchley Park, and Bletchley Park was the top secret code breaking center where the British broke the German Enigma code during World War II, and it was one of the major contributions to defeating the Axis. Winston Churchill once said that the Germans could not have been defeated without the codebreaker from Bletchley Park, and that they were heroes as much as any of the fighting men. About 2 years before Mavis Beatty died, she was scheduled to give an address at a meeting, and she couldn't do it, but she sent along her statement, and it was delivered by Kate Adie, one of Britain's leading female journalists.
The people who worked at Bletchley Park, many women indeed, who were involved in this top secret work, and they themselves were prevented, as you will hear, from saying things for many years. But even so, there are still some of them, just one or two, who still have never spoken about it, and many went to their grave having breathed not a word about this work. Background to Mavis is that she was born in 1921 and she worked as a code breaker during the war at Bletchley Park. She'd been studying German Romanticism at University College London when the war broke out. Seeing the links between her studies and the Nazi context, she applied to the Foreign Office and was posted to Bletchley Park. It was there that she assisted in Dilly Knox's section, working to break the Enigma machine codes. In Mavis' own words, she was thrown in at the deep end and just expected to get on with the work. Often the section would be tasked with jumbo rush, which meant working flat out for days and nights until the mission had been accomplished and the coded message broken. Despite the frenetic nature of the work, it was not until the Official History of British Intelligence was published in 1990 that Mavis really understood what the haste of Jumbo Rush had really meant. For many decades after the war had ended, Mavis and her husband, a fellow code breaker, had been unable to talk about their work, and it was only this year that the document she'd helped to write in 1945 relating to their work was finally declassified. And this is her memoir. I was fortunate to be recruited to Bletchley Park as a German linguist when I was halfway through my studies, and I was told to report to the famous Dilly Knox, who masterminded the breaking of Enigma machines in this country. I had no idea what an Enigma machine was, and was hardly any the wiser when he looked up and said, "Hello, we're breaking machines. Have you got a pencil?" and handed me a blunt pencil and a pile of utter gibberish. One was just thrown in at the deep end and told to get on with it in Dilly's section. Working for an eccentric genius whose motto was "Nothing is impossible" at the most formative years of my life clearly made a lasting impression. He was an eminent classical scholar and papyrologist before he turned to wartime cryptography, and was always impressed on us that a scholar must see work through from beginning to end, whatever that entailed. When the Enigma problems were solved and his section became known as Intelligence Services Knox, ISK for short, its traffic immediately became operational. Dilly's staff never knew exactly what the operational crisis was, but word would come through, Jumbo Rush, which meant working flat out, perhaps for days and nights, until the mission was said to have been accomplished and the last message needed was broken. In later life, my husband, who'd been part of the setup, would say to me when, in the days before personal computers, I would rush to catch the last post, "There's no Jumbo Rush, old girl. Men's lives don't depend on it anymore." But habits learned at Bletchley die hard. It was not until the Official History of British Intelligence was published in 1990 that we really knew what Jumbo Rush was all about. And it was only 2 months ago, at the Enigma reunion, that GCHQ released to Bletchley Park the ISK report, where it explained how it was done. The histories of Hut 6 and Hut 8, dealing with the Army, Navy and Air Force material, were published some years ago, but ours related to the German Secret Service, the Abwehr, the equivalent of MI6 and MI5. And we were told it would never be declassified. I am the last survivor of the 4 contributors who wrote it in 1945, Dilley having died in 1943, and am overwhelmed trying to piece cryptographic work with action in the field. Our messages had been crucial to the double-cross system, which had been put in place in early 1941, when it was decided to try and turn captured spies into double agents who could send back false information to their unsuspecting controllers in neutral countries on their own wireless sets, as directed by their case officers. However, until Dilley broke the Abwehr Enigma machine on which their reports were sent on to Berlin, and by the questions they asked back, their reactions were not discovered. After the break, there was a greater ability to advance effective strategic deception. Deception concerned fictitious minefields and defences, and, most importantly, misinformation about the North African Allied landings in 1942, Sicily in 1943, with the trump card of the Normandy landings in 1944. Under MI6's need-to-know defence and security policy, you only knew the aspect of your own work without knowing the whole picture, and so we knew nothing about the double cross, except how to break the messages involved. Furthermore, under the Official Secrets Act, we couldn't talk about our work at Bletchley for 30 years, which accounts for the patchiness of veterans' memories. My husband and I were better off, as we could talk to each other when the family was not around. They never knew anything about it until they were grown up, although I gather they were rather suspicious that we could always beat everybody at Scrabble. Women who worked at Bletchley Park have much to be grateful for, living in the relaxed atmosphere of a country house with a landscape garden. Civilian codebreakers, like myself, were especially fortunate. This was a remarkable community where neither rank nor status counted, and a girl of 19 with a bright idea would be encouraged to take it forward, and this long before any official equality for women. Throughout Bletchley Park and its outstations, all that mattered was getting the job done in a win-or-lose war situation, with no thought of bonus, promotion, or steps-up ladders, wherever or whoever you were. Perhaps these are lessons for the common good today in another dire situation.
Mavis Beatty, obviously an amazing woman. The German Enigma machine was their code box, which changed their code daily and was virtually impossible to break. Here a British cryptographer explains how it worked.
The German Secret Service units issued a code book which contained the settings for each day, which changed at midnight. All Enigma operators within a local network had to set their machines to the code setting for the day so that each of them could encode and decode letters and messages. Firstly, the operators chose 3 rotors from a box of 5. These rotors were all wired differently, and before placing them in the machine, the operators reset an inner wheel on the rotor to a marked position on the outer ring. They were then placed in the machine in the order indicated in the code book. Next, the rotors are set to the letters of the day. The next part of the procedure is the stecker board, which is indicated in the front of the machine. These steckers, which are plugs, are changed according to the code book again, and each plug will change one letter. For example, the letter A to the letter K. When the operator presses, let's say, the letter A, it sets up an electric current which runs through the machine, first through the stecker board, changing the letter each time it goes, then runs to the rear of the machine, first through the 3 rotors, hits a reflector plate, and comes back on a different part of the 3 rotors again, finally lighting a lamp at the rear of the machine, indicating another letter other than the one which was pressed. The Enigma machine cannot encode the letter that you press in the first instance. The remarkable thing about Enigma is that when you press a letter on the keyboard and the subsequent enciphered letter lights up to the rear of the machine, the chances of that letter lighting up are nearly 158 million to 1. Now, to put that into perspective, your chances of winning the British National Lottery are approximately 18 million to 1. It's a misconception that if you have an Enigma machine, you can break any Enigma messages. This, of course, is completely untrue. It's necessary to break the key setting for the day before you can understand an Enigma message.
The German Enigma machine, which Mavis Beatty helped break. We're going to close tonight with Manfred Rommel, who died recently at the age of 84. He was the mayor of Stuttgart, but more importantly, he was the son of the Desert Fox, Erwin Rommel, the field marshal and great infantry commander in North Africa and in Normandy for the Germans in World War II. Like his father, Manfred Rommel was a brilliant man, but he turned his efforts to peace, and he talked often with the British. Here's BBC4's Matthew Bannister's last word to talk a little bit about Manfred Rommel.
Now, Dr. Manfred Rommel was the mayor of the German city of Stuttgart and the son of the wartime general Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. After the war, he formed a remarkable friendship with the son of his father's greatest adversary, Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. The Stuttgart-based journalist Jürgen Weibel knew Manfred Rommel well.
Living under the shadow of his father was a real burden for him all his life.
Field Marshal Erwin Rommel was known as the Desert Fox for his leadership of the Afrika Korps. His greatest triumph came when he took the town of Tobruk after fierce fighting. The victory was celebrated across Germany and applauded by Adolf Hitler. But Rommel's career later ended ignominiously after he was badly injured in an Allied air raid and sent home to recover. The current Viscount Montgomery, son of the British general, picks up the story.
Hitler falsely implicated him in the Stauffenberg plot. He was given the alternative of committing suicide or going on trial, and he knew that, of course, trial would be farcical. So he actually had to take his own life.
And he took a cyanide pill, didn't he? And he spoke to Manfred just before he did that.
That's right. Manfred talked about this experience, and indeed removingly.
What did he say about it? Because Manfred must have been 15, nearly 16.
He was 15, yeah. Very traumatic experience.
General Keane told my father that Hitler regards him as a traitor, but regarding his merits in North Africa, he will have the chance to die by poison.
You were witness to this?
Yes. My father asked these two people to have the opportunity to say goodbye to my mother and to me and to his ADC.
You were a very young boy still at that time. What impact did it have on you?
It destroyed the last illusions concerning the Third Reich.
And did you get the sense that he himself was very proud of his own father?
Yes, he was indeed.
What was the one quality about your father that you admired most and perhaps tried to emulate?
He was a warm-hearted man, at least seen through my eyes. And he was tolerant, he could listen, and he was quite clear in his sayings and his thinking.
Commentators go on to talk about Manfred Rommel.
Very liberal thinking, and he had a conservative attitude. He was a very humorous man, and he was also a very kind person to everybody, and he was down to earth. And this, I think, made him so popular among the citizens, not only in Stuttgart, all over Germany. He's an example, so to speak, for the new Germany, who has the burden of the past in the person of this father. In another way, they are very open-minded for the new society after the war.
Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer, Sid Tepps, and of course the most famous mention of Erwin Rommel in a movie was in the movie Patton by George C. Scott, playing Patton in the deserts of North Africa.
Rommel, you magnificent bastard, I read your book!
And we'll close tonight with Jerry Goldsmith's theme from Patton.